Do you see yourself doing this diet forever, or do you see this as kind of like a fix to a problem that you're having?
Honestly, what I told myself and I told other people, I'll probably do keto for the rest of my life, but there's a little, I don't want to say full keto. I mean, can't do full keto without keto, but when I hit my goal weight, I'm not going to eat breads anymore. I'm staying away from breads. I'm going to stay away from pastas. I'm going to stay away from the artificial sugars and the sodas. But what I am going to incorporate in my diet is fruit, like natural fruit, like
Yeah,
raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, oranges. Honestly, never been a fan of apples, bananas every now and then, but I just want to incorporate fruit in my diet.
yeah.
And
Any sort of
like
honey or stuff like this?
I love honey. Oh, I
Mhm.
love honey. But honestly, I think if I get sick, my favorite thing to do is make a hot honey lemon water, put some bourbon in it or some whiskey. And I think, yeah, and I think if that's the only time I have honey is when I'm sick, I'm cool with that. I'm
So
cool with it.
I would highly suggest you read up on an individual called Dr. Paul Saladino, and
Okay.
he's one of these guys where that I think he's in his 40s for sure, super lean, super good shape. He's always kind of showing like I look like this and I only do X Y Z, but he is a huge carnivore slash. I forget what he calls it. I think he calls it like the human based diet or something like this. But what he's about is just eating a lot of meat, a lot of eggs, a lot of fruit, and also honey. And that's like kind of like that's like as far as carbohydrates go, that's his only exception. So he's been doing this diet for a long time, and he's very well known. He'd be a guy that I would love to talk to at some point if this podcast ever gets big enough. But he's a guy who I would definitely defer to as a resource for like long term sustainability of a ketogenic slash all natural diet.
Okay. You're definitely have to text me his name after this because I want to read that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
I'll send it to you.
I mean, there's a point like keto forever. It's possible. I don't know if it's the best. I don't know much about it. You're more of an expert than I am, but I think there's a point that your body just needs other foods than just meat and fats. Like you said, you need the fruit, you need the honey. Like if you can use that as your carbohydrates and your sugars, I think you're set for life.
So
In my
the
opinion. That's
So
just
the,
me.
what essentially is going to happen, and this is what I've kind of noticed, just in like on my own, being a bodybuilder, trying to do keto, at least for cuts and stuff like this. There's a point where that it's clear that your body definitely needs insulin for some different functions. It needs it for IGF-1 for cell proliferation, for the body to essentially grow cells back the correct way. If you bring IGF-1 down hypothetically to as low as you could, you would live to be 170 years old and age like super gracefully and stuff like this. But it has its drawbacks, such as performance. So for if as you start getting really lean, you definitely need like some of like the glucose that comes from fruits and honey. That's
Mhm.
just kind of a quick fix to have any sort of explosive movement. And it seems to regulate electrolytes a little bit better, where that you're not constantly slamming magnesium or taurine or different stuff like this to prevent from cramping up. Because
Mhm.
for some people, they can do keto, they're just fine. They're not on any electrolyte supplements. They're doing amazing. Other people, when they first started, they cramp up. They got problems with that. They'll get Charlie horses and stuff like this, because your body's electrolyte system is completely dysregulated. So I remember when I first started this diet, I would be walking to college classes and I had tremendous cramps in my quads and my calves. And
Oh yeah.
I don't know what changed, but when I started doing it again recently, I don't have that problem whatsoever.
Hmm.
I do take liquid IV, but I take it. I really almost take it to like flavor my water sometimes because I get pretty tired of just Coke Zero and water. Um,
Facts. Facts.
but I'll use it to sometimes just flavor my water.
Mhm.
And I do that maybe twice a week. So I don't think that that's doing enough of a benefit to all of a sudden prevent me from not cramping after having terrible cramps when I first started. So
Yeah.
when I noticed when I put magnesium in, it really prevented a lot of those problems.
Mhm.
As far as cramping went, or I would sometimes be like typing on the computer like this, and then my wrist would kind of like cramp up like this, almost like carpal
Mhm.
tunnel.
Oof.
but that doesn't happen anymore either. So that's kind of what I see people do anyways. There's also Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson. Dr. Jordan Peterson, obviously famous for his talks and especially in regards to men's communities, but he's been on the carnivore diet for, I want to say he started in 16. So we're talking about 7 or 8 years, and
Wow.
he's 6'2" and 162 pounds. And I think he's in his early 60s now or late 50s. So he's still doing it to this day. And the one thing that him and his daughter both talked about, that actually salting your food is super important. Like you want to salt the heck out of it to actually have some
Mm-hmm.
sort of electrolyte concentration in your system.
Mm-hmm. I want to tell you, before keto, I never liked salt. Like to me, just putting a little bit of salt, I'm like, oh man, this is too salty. But now I could douse something with salt and I wouldn't even, I can't tell that there's salt.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just can't tell.
Yeah. I've seen people kind of say the same thing. So it's something where that it's really regulating electrolytes, and the fact that
Mm-hmm.
salt has been bastardized in the medical community is sad as can be, because